Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to go through a few slides very quickly, but most of the points on the slides will repeat what was said previously. So I'm going to go through this very quickly, and I think it's better if we leave time for questions then from you guys to all of us. So I'm originally from France. I was born and raised in France. I come from a family in Cognac, so we come from the spirits industry. I worked for Rémy Cointreau for a few years. I then worked for William Grant & Sons for 9 years. I managed the Latin American Caribbean business for William Grant & Sons until I founded our company Actium in 2004, originally as a distributor for wines and spirits. And then coming back to a point that was made earlier, we thought we needed critical mass and we needed to gather a few brands together. So we did that. But we did it differently in our case. We decided to expand into different categories. So today we still have a representation business for wines and spirits, but we are also in fashion and accessories. We are in beauty, perfumes, cosmetics. We are in jewelry, in watches. And we were fortunate to put together a portfolio of some of the best brands in the world, and always in the high-end segment, basically. We represent beyond spirits brands like Hermès and Gucci, Cartier. We distribute the L'Oréal group in the Caribbean. So powerful brands which give us the critical mass to go and talk to buyers at big duty-free retailers. This is a plus. It comes back to a piece of advice that I believe John said, where he said that they gathered, strengths with Edrington and with other companies. It's true that if you guys can put your brand with someone who has strengths and several brands, it helps. In our case, when we talk to the big retailers, we are sometimes unable to get an appointment or to get to present a brand, a spirit brand, for example, if it's a new brand. We represent Malfy, which is a brilliant but young brand. If we have an issue sometimes putting it in the face of a retailer, we're going to use our connection through the other brands that we represent, the L'Oréal and the Hermès, to get the right appointment with the top management and show it to them. So duty-free and travel retail in the Americas, a couple of points. Travel retail in the Americas is overall less sophisticated than it is in the rest of the world, and that is something historical. So true luxury brands tend to favor Asia, particularly Asia, which is big, growing, and super premium, and Europe versus travel retail Americas, which for many years was not very qualitative. This is changing. Big guys are coming into the markets. The Dufry, the DFS are now there, and it's raising the bar. But if you have a true super premium brand, the travel retail in Americas is not necessarily the first place to look at, unless, of course, your brand is present and strong in the domestic markets, and particularly in Europe. Increasing interest from duty-free operators for authentic premium, craft or super premium spirits. It was also previously mentioned. And that's, in my opinion, the hope. I would say the only hope for young companies, entrepreneurs who are launching new brands. It was said previously that it's very hard to get into duty-free. It's expensive. There is a consolidation with, on the one hand, big brands, and on the other hand, big retailers. Dufry was telling me last week that they now have 32,000 employees, $8 billion turnover, and they deal obviously mostly with the big companies like the Diageo and so on. However, because the consumer is interested in authentic craft premium spirits, these big guys understand that they also must leave a small door open to these brands, not to miss the trend. But however, as it was previously said, if you have a super premium German gin, for example, you will have a better chance to have it listed in a few doors in Germany to start, and from there you will be able to expand. So it's not completely lost. We don't want to be completely negative about your prospect in duty-free. It is possible, but for this you must have a great product, a great packaging, it has to be good, it has to look good, and you have to have a great story. And with this, you're going to get their attention, you're going to get their ear. In fact, in our company, we are launching in the next 2 months the first super premium French whiskey with a great story and a great product, and we believe a good packaging. And we did get the ear of the big guys, the DFS, the Dufry last week in Cannes, because it's unique, because it's good, and because it's premium. So it's not impossible, but it's not easy. In the Caribbean, worrying trend. In the Caribbean, what we have been seeing in the last few years is an increase in traffic in the Caribbean, but a decrease in the quality of tourism in general. And the Caribbean is not a super premium place today. In general, there are a few exceptions with a few islands that do well, with some cruise ships, but very few. Most super luxury cruise ships today are not cruising the Caribbean. They are cruising in Asia and in Europe. Caribbean is more of a volume-driven place. This we already discussed, and these two, so I'm going to pass the next points. We are, by the way, we know very well the cruise ship channel in our company. We are the biggest independent supplier of premium brands to cruise ships. So if there is any question specific about cruise ships, we can answer that. Duty-free landscape and tips. Landscape, we discussed consolidation of suppliers on the one hand and the retailers on the other hand. Small to medium-sized independent retailers are being squeezed out. That means they come back to you, the brands, and they demand more and more margin. When I started in duty-free 20 years ago, we would sell spirits at, John, you probably remember, at 55, 60% off a few years ago. Now you arrive with a small brand, a new brand to a big retailers. He won't even talk to you if you don't start with 70% margin. You agree? Minimum. And some guys now mention 75% margin. If you find a deal with them, they will still ask for money to activate the brand one way or another. So it is true that it is difficult to make money in travel retail from the get-go, unless through a travel retail exclusive label that has no price comparison with the domestic market. You raise your price so that you still make money on giving away 70% gross margin to a retailer. So many brands do that. You see now even big brands now, it was said previously, having travel retail exclusive ranges to avoid price comparison with the domestic markets. It basically sets you free to place the cursor, the price cursor where you want. You can try to raise your price, but again, I come back to what I said earlier. Product has to be great, it has to look great, you have to have a compelling story, and you will still have to somehow invest in brand activation after that. So it's not an easy equation. Duty-free operators do price comparisons, we also mentioned that. As far as tips, we mentioned truly differentiating an authentic brand. Give exclusivity to an operator. Some, especially for craft brands, there are probably a lot of craft brands around the room with interesting stories. Some operators like exclusivity. I mean, obviously they all like exclusivity, but some will really take this into consideration, into helping you. So for you to pick one big guy and say, listen, you're going to be exclusive in Asia, or you're going to be exclusive in Europe, or you're going to be exclusive for the first 6 months of the first year, this is something to consider. By the way, for some startup brands, I would also consider being potentially exclusive to travel retail for a while, which allows you to raise your price. John and I had this discussion before the panel. If you have very small volumes to launch, Why not start in duty-free, raise your price as much as you can, try to get a few good listings, show the brands around, give them exclusivity. Hopefully you will still make margin or break even, but you showcase the brand and it puts you in a better position to then go to domestic distributors and present the brand.